The story begins with Cortana talking about how special Green Man is in time for him to finish a base jump from the stratosphere, landing in East Africa, specifically Kenya. After a brief bout of rigor mortis, he waits for the perfect dramatic moment to reveal to Cigar Sergeant that he is, in fact, still alive. And when asked where Cortana is, we're reminded that she stayed behind. With the Gravemind, which no one else knows about, but oh god, oh Jesus, we need to save her yesterday. The Arbiter inexplicably approaches while cloaked and nearly deep-throats a pistol before Cigar Sergeant reassures Green Man that we're all friends now, which is why Arbitration skulked up to them like he was prepared to fillet everyone there. Truce accepted, the gang fight their way through Covenant forces to reach a UNSC holdout led by Keys Squared, who explains that the Prophet of Truth bulldozed his way through all of Earth's defenses and is digging for a way to a Forerunner installation called the Ark, where he can fire all Halo rings at once. A conversation with Commander Perlman is interrupted by Truth performing his version of the Max Headroom incident, but maybe he'd calm down if someone swatted his ass. Needless to say, the gang is not into this and proceed to evacuate the base. After a moment of wondering what the hell Green Man's pose is when he doesn't have a weapon, we successfully evacuate and leave a nice big bomb for the attacking Covenant forces to enjoy in our absence. But not before Green Man experiences hallucinations of Cortana, which might be a good idea to mention to literally anyone at any point, and yet. Barely escaping the explosion, Green Man and friends Fury rode their way to the ruins of New Mombasa, where Truth is being a right little twerp. His excavation project seems to have uncovered the Ark, which was left buried on Earth of all places, and in a disappointing turn of events, the terminals in this game are all text-based, because I am in fact 5 years old and require pictures to understand anything, which you can imagine is really detrimental as a writer. Moving on to the city, Green Man and friends wreck Covenant Face, taking out tanks, air support, a goddamn Scarab, and the anti-air gun, making things difficult for Commander Perlman. The human ships finally swoop in and fire on Truth, only for him to activate the Forerunner artifact and tear open a discount Eye of Sauron.
This is the way the world ends.
He promptly flees through it with the rest of the Covenant just in time for the f***ing flood to Kramer its way into the plot and crash land on Earth. This is fine. The horror music kicks in as Flood immediately spread everywhere while Green Man and Arbitration make their way to the crashed ship to nuke its engine and eradicate the local infestation, or, you know, risk losing the whole of Earth. It turns out Cortana was on the ship, so even more reason to climb in and get covered in spores. I mean, like, one spore is enough to cause an outbreak. Isn't it possible for just, like, one of them to hitch a ride on Green Man's armor? Are we just not gonna worry about that? Okay. On the ship, Green Man is assaulted by more hallucinations, this time from the Gravemind, who tries to sell him some blatant bull.
Do not be afraid. I am peace. I am salvation.
Are you sure about that?
He finally retrieves a USB with a message from Cortana, only to be interrupted by worst robot yet again. Why are you still alive? Cortana warns them that the infested High Charity, the Covenant city station, is on its way to Earth and they need to get to the Ark because there's a way to destroy the Flood without firing the Halo rings, which sounds too good to be true, but alright. After a gearing up montage, the gang heads through the portal to the Ark. Commander Barry White engages the bulk of Truth's forces in space, while Green Man and friends descend to fight on the ground. Upon landing, I found that playing survival games and MMOs has trained me to see crystal outcrops and immediately try to harvest them like a trained squirrel. Green Man and friends fight their way through dunes and canyons, clearing a way for Keys Squared to swoop in and drop off more soldiers, and some tanks to deal with everything else in their way. With the help of Worst Robot, Green Man reaches the Ark's cartographer, which shows him exactly where they are and where they need to go to find Truth, who is holed up at the core behind a barrier. Covenant show up to interrupt Worst Robot from explaining things too much, and Thel jumps into a Banshee to help clear the skies with Cigar Sergeant while Green Man fights on the ground. At least that's what he said he'd do. In my game, Thel chose the sweet release of death. Once extracted, Green Man and friends head to the core to ruin Truth's day and fight through an immense amount of bullshit to bring down 3 generators keeping the barrier active. Green Man takes the first generator, Thel the second, and Cigar Sergeant the third. The first 2 generators go down, but when the third doesn't, everyone regroups to the third tower. There's barely a whiff of tobacco at the third tower, but Green Man turns the generator off just in time for High Charity to emerge from slipspace and crash on the Ark, because of course it does. Why not? We all happen to be here anyway, it's just convenient, the more the merrier. But its arrival takes out the carrier meant to give Truth a divine laser enema, so it's down to the remaining ground and air forces to get rid of 2 goddamn scarabs and everything else Truth still has on his side. Once the goddamn scarabs are down, Green Man and Thel head inside worst robot. Okay, that's not the fanfiction I wanted. Once the goddamn scarabs are down, Green Man and Thel head inside with Worst Robot to deal with Truth, only to be held up by the world's slowest elevator while we're treated to Cigar Sergeant getting manhandled by a space yeti. Key Squared has had enough of Truth's smug preaching and smashes a pelican through the window, only to find herself surrounded. She quickly realizes that the only way to deny Truth what he wants is to kill Johnson and then herself, only to take a sudden burning interest in extreme body modification. Truth smugly tells Cigar Sergeant that he's weak while gods must be strong and manipulates his hand to activate the arc, while Green Man and Thel finally reach the top of the elevator and...
Do not shoot, but listen. Let me lead you safely to our foe. Only you can halt what he has set in motion.
This part is the worst, but also amazing because of the tension involved, fighting their way to the Prophet with the flood at their side for all of 5 minutes because it's only helping so it doesn't starve. Reaching the Prophet, it turns out he's already infested with the flood, and while he clings to his beliefs, the Gravemind mocks him, eventually leading to this fantastic moment.
I am Truth, the voice of the Covenant. So, you must be silenced.
Though I worry about Thel's health because dude is just exhaling spores right into my boy's face. Stop it. You're gross. Johnson takes Miranda's body on the Pelican, and the Gravemind shows its hand, immediately turning on everyone now that it isn't at risk of starving to death. After a frantic fight back to the lift, Green Man and Thel manage to escape into the lower levels, where he follows a flickering image of Cortana to an overlook and witnesses the rise of a replacement Halo. One they can use to wipe out the massive flood infestation on the Ark, which is safely outside the Milky Way galaxy and not at risk of wiping everyone else out. When Thel asks how he'll activate it, Green Man gets on a Banshee and flies directly to the crashed ruin of High Charity to retrieve Cortana, who still has the activation index. Now, any amount of time around the Gravemind would be pretty bad for anyone, but Cortana has clearly been having a good time, as between climbing through fungal sphincters and getting his ass full of spines, Green Man continually hears Cortana saying some interesting things.
Collection of lies. That's all I am. Stolen thoughts and memories.
And yet, perhaps a part of her remains.
Eventually, Cortana is found and retrieved, showing signs of completely understandable trauma with the situation. Green Man rearranges the Gravemind's guts with a chain reaction that will blow High Charity to hell, and reunites with Thel, who arrive to burn an escape path, which really just solidifies my half-joking thought of them as soulmates. Thel stays with Green Man to see the mission finished, and they head to the unfinished Halo's control room, fighting through snowy hell and yet more goddamn flood to do so. It's only when they reach said control room that Worst Robot proves worthy of his name yet again. See, there's a problem. Because this Halo is unfinished, firing it won't just destroy the flood, but everything, the Ark included. Finishing it would take days, and the gang absolutely does not have days to wait just so that Worst Robot can keep his precious installations intact. He would rather the flood rage out of control and escape back into the galaxy on some other ship than end it here. With the gang unwilling to wait, Worst Robot goes rampant and attacks them, fatally blasting Johnson first, and after Green Man destroys him, Johnson asks to be sent out with a bang, prompting Green Man to activate the Halo and leading to a frantic escape where he and Thel find Johnson's Warthog. Driving across Halo's collapsing surface through hordes of flood, the vehicle physics threaten to end the story more than anything the Gravemind tries to do, while Cortana stresses us out by keeping us up to date on how close the Halo is to vaporizing us. Thanks. Making it to the ship forward onto Dawn, Thel is almost crushed by a tank, and Green Man plugs Cortana into the system so she can fire the engines and get them the f*** out of there. Green Man almost gets thrown out of the hangar by inertia because it doesn't have doors apparently, but manages to scramble his way back to safety. The screen whites out just as Cortana tells him it's been an honor. Cutting to Commander Perlman standing in front of a memorial on Earth, we're shown that only half the ship made it through the portal, with Thel surviving in the cockpit to tell Perlman what happened. He tells Thel that he can't forgive what the elites did to humanity in the war, but that he appreciates Thel was with Green Man to the end. The elites withdraw from Earth, with Commander Barry and Thel returning to their homeworld, and there is a final lingering shot of the numbers 117 scratched into the memorial. Only for Cortana to speak, revealing she and Green Man did survive the ship tearing in half. Navigating the microgravity, he finds his way to a cryopod and plugs Cortana into the system with the intent of going to sleep until someone finds them. He tells her to wake him up when she needs him, and Cortana is left alone with her thoughts after the horrible situation she went through with the Gravemind, which I'm sure is fine. She's fine. And with that, the story ends, to be picked up in Halo 4, where we all have a very happy, normal time that will not involve tears at all.